Hello and welcome to CB Talk, the Combined Transport Blackwell Monthly Podcast. Today is March 21st, 2025, and I'm your host, Nick Card, Vice President of Operations. Today we've got a great interview with Jennifer Ford, our HR manager. We'll talk a little bit about insurance, workers' comp, Oregon short-term disability and paid sick leave. But first, the news. Our drivers of the month this month: Donnie Berg in Glass and Flatbed, Seth Hartman in Blackwell, John Morrison in Heavy Haul. Congratulations, you guys. Thank you so much for your hard work. And our corporate employee of the month, Marissa Daniels. Thanks for being part of Team Combined. Our safety topic of the month this month in March: emergency procedures and accident response. The focus: proper response in emergencies and accidents. We want to make sure that you guys know how to handle roadside emergencies, accident scene protocols, reporting procedures, and the safety steps to secure the scene and protect yourself and others when you're out there. If you have any questions or concerns about emergency procedures and accident responses, reach out to your fleet manager, reach out to claims, or reach out to safety. In the news this month, more tariffs. Trump's tariff policies continue to raise uncertainty about the future of the economy. Certain markets are winners, certain markets are losers, and as quickly as the tariffs change, so too do those markets. Possibility for future investment in the U.S. from companies that currently do significant business in Mexico and Canada, cross-border trade with us, but it is still left to be seen exactly how all of this tariff war is going to shake out. And now, it's time for the interview. My guest here with us in the studio today is Jennifer Ford, our Human Resources Manager. Jennifer, you're an active 4-H mom. You've got 2 kids. I understand it is 4-H season, so does that mean you're also pig mom now? Is that the world you find yourself in?
Yes, that'll be my life until July this summer. But we love it. It's busy, it's challenging, and you guys get some pretty good stories out of it.
So dealing with pigs, there's a lot of challenges. They're very needy. Nothing goes right. Insurance issues. Sounds like being an HR manager.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap actually there. Yeah, for sure.
So tell us a little bit about sort of how you got into HR, the transition into the company, and how sort of bringing HR into trucking. What's that been like for you?
So I got into HR in 2021. Officially, I would say. I had prior experience as supervisor role, but not for trucking. Most of my career is in manufacturing. I love to help employees and protect the company at the same time. But I will say, HR for a trucking company is something that I was very unfamiliar with, and just the challenges that you face day to day communicating so far away. You can't go out onto the floor and help them with their needs or communicate face to face. It's hard to communicate a lot of times over the phone.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. We have been a remote employer forever, basically. Drivers are always out over the road, and this whole remote work thing that happened during COVID. It's like, how do you work with employees? It's like, well, as a trucking industry, we've been doing this forever, and it still amazes me the challenges that we experience, even with all of that history, and. I can see on your side from the HR stuff, dealing with insurance and enrollment, and there's so much bureaucracy that happens there. Getting people who are really trying to focus on their day job of driving, they can't be working on paperwork. Yeah. That's a huge challenge to try to, keep that ship moving.
Yeah, for sure. When we send them out open enrollment information or any other updates that we need, it's not something they can do on demand. They have to be stopped and in a safe place and have a working device that allows them to do this. So it's challenging for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know too with, we've seen a lot of increase in insurance costs. We have medical care is a lot more expensive. And as we've been trying to manage that, there have been a lot of changes for employees over the last 4 or 5 years. And you've been in the middle of some of that. I know we still have more changes coming up. I mean, can you talk a little bit about what that looks like? What should our drivers and employees expect with sort of HR benefits as we look ahead?
Yeah, that's a tough conversation right now because we are in the middle of making another adjustment. So what had happened, Nick, to be honest, is we hadn't had any kind of pay adjustments to our insurance in over 10 years, and so we were a little bit behind the game, but we were trying to make it extremely affordable for our employees, which everybody can appreciate. The problem is that we are not staying up with the rate increase from our insurance, well below. Last year we made a slight increase and adjusted our out-of-pocket slightly, which is still, if you look around, it's still really, really good coverage and very affordable. So right now we're actually in the process of increasing again by 25%. And I think there's some confusion around that too. When I sent on an email saying that benefits were increasing at 25%, that still is below 20% of what the employee is paying for total cost, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so just so I understand that, so of the total cost of all insurance that's provided, which includes an employer portion and an employee portion, that employee portion is less than 20%.
It's still less than 20%. And we want to continue to be able to do that, but we have to make slight changes. We are going to continue to look at other options for 2026. Our goal is to still provide the best coverage we can that allows drivers to be treated all over. If they're not local, they're across the United States, and so we need to find a good carrier that will provide good service to them at an affordable rate.
Absolutely. Well, I was just pulling up some numbers here on my phone as we were talking. Since 2020, so in the last 25 years, medical costs have gone up over 120%. That means in 25 years, the cost of getting medicine has more than doubled. That's crazy. And I know we've seen a lot of that, especially over the last few years because of COVID and because of all the inflation that we've had. That's a crazy number to me, over 120%.
Right. Yeah, it is. And it's hard for team members to see, their rate going up. And I can understand that and I totally appreciate that. But if you look around and you try to get coverage outside of the company, you will be paying triple that amount. So looking at other companies, we try to stay within a good range, and we are well below the average for medical cost, and we want to continue to do that moving forward. We're looking at other options for 2026.
Well, it's always a difficult balance because how much do you cover? How much does it cost? We could always cut coverage to reduce costs, but we have people who depend on that coverage for their medical care. And so, striking that balance is not easy.
No, it's not. And we want to keep our out-of-pocket low. Right now we're at $750, which is pretty good. If you look outside at other employers and insurances, $750 out of pocket is pretty good. Our co-pays, they're low. Those are the types of things that really matter to team members, and those are the things that we try to focus on.
Yeah. Well, thinking about that sort of coverage cost balance, I'm sure that we may have some team members that are saying, look, I don't need all this stuff, or my spouse has insurance or whatever. Are there options for them to help kind of manage those costs?
Well, right now they have the option. We have open enrollment in January of every year, and I'm hoping to move that up in the coming year. But right now we're in you can call it kind of a mini open enrollment. And what that means is they are able to make changes to what they have selected. If they decided that maybe they would rather go on their spouse, they'd rather pay for private insurance, whatever the case may be, they have the option to do so.
Okay. So basically, we get a bonus open enrollment period out of this. Okay. So at least that gives us those team members that may want to do something different in the face of this increase, they have those options. So, again, thinking about what those benefits are, how those are, is there a better tool than just pick up the phone and call Jennifer to understand that? Though I know you're happy to take phone calls. Are there other resources that are out there for employees to sort of understand these benefits and help them make the best decision for themselves?
Yeah. They can always log on to My Providence. All you need is your member ID and your group ID.
And that's on the insurance
and
card,
that's
right?
on the insurance card. And that's a great resource. It can help you locate providers in your area. It can help you with RX information, if you're getting prescriptions. But I'm always happy to take calls, and we can go over the benefit packet together and kind of troubleshoot and figure out what exactly they're trying to achieve with reaching out about the benefits.
Sure. No, it's important to understand what you have, if it's the right fit for you, for your family. And oh my gosh, if I've learned anything about the medical world, it's is this too complicated? Hold on a second, we can make it worse.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, and sometimes you just need a refresher. Maybe you haven't seen the doctor in a long time and you need to see exactly what your plan covers. And so that's where that 2025 medical packet comes in really handy.
Gotcha. No. As employees are sort of looking at these benefits, cost, all that kind of stuff, is there a way for them to provide feedback on this as we look ahead to 2026 and our plan selection for 2026? And how do you sort of, tell me a little bit about that process and how we make those decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I get a lot of emails from drivers when they're having issues with the insurance, and I get a lot of phone calls. And so we communicate that to Providence regularly. Here, these are the things that our team members are struggling with, and these are the things that we need to see some improvement on. When we go to look at other resources for insurance, these are the things that we bring to them and say, hey, our drivers, our team members are out on the road, and these are the things that they're experiencing. This is what we're trying to do to look into not having this reoccur. Okay, we don't want it to be something that every time they go to fill their prescription, it says denied, or it says they do not have coverage. And those are the types of things that they have dealt with lately. And I feel really bad for them. They only have a short time to get to a facility to get their prescriptions, and then they have to deal with that. And so that's been a real challenging and disheartening. And I'm hoping that we have figured that out over the last couple months.
Well, that's good. I mean, obviously, it's important that we are able to provide the needs. I mean, the last thing anybody wants is a medical insurance that doesn't do what medical insurance is supposed to do. So it's important to get that feedback for sure. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of care, one of the things that I know that we've seen a number of cases of recently is workers' comp injuries. And I know that's been an important piece for us. There's a whole process that has to be followed. We got to make sure that way, if you are injured on the job, you got to be taken care of. It's something that happens. It's not really medical insurance, but it's, that separate workers' comp piece, and you're right in the middle of all that workers' comp stuff on the HR side. What is your take on workers' comp? Sort of my instinct is, I think we're seeing an increase in injuries. I don't know if that's a care piece or if that's just seasonality. What can our employees do to make sure they prevent injury? What are some tips that you're seeing on that side? Tell us a little bit about workers' comp.
First of all, I think when people hear the word workman's comp, it scares them, right? Right away, they're like, oh gosh, this is not workman's comp. And I'm like, yes, actually, that is workman's comp. So first thing I want to say to all of our drivers is don't be afraid of workman's comp. It's not a scary thing at all. And it's really there to protect you and help you and ensure that you are well. So, we do trends so we can see, when we're seeing a certain type of injury and maybe the time of year. And, when it's between November and I would say March, we see a lot of slips. It's icy, It's wet. So it's really important to have good footwear. You need to have something that has really good grip, and just know your surroundings. I would say that, the drivers, there's sometimes they just cannot prevent, the accident, and they don't want to be involved in an accident, but sometimes you can't avoid it. But there are times when you need to make sure that you're making the best decision when you're out there.
Sure. Well, too, if you get injured, a lot of times I've seen for these cases, it can be embarrassing. I mean, who wants to, oh yeah, I slipped. I probably should have been wearing better footwear, whatever it was. And now I'm injured, but I don't want to tell anybody. And now it just gets worse because you're not taking care of it. You're not treating it. So if you do have that kind of injury, what should that sort of first step be for the driver that's out there?
Right. So the first step is you're going to reach out to your dispatcher right away, because that's going to be your primary contact. And you're going to tell them, hey, listen, I've kind of injured myself. I'm not saying I need to seek treatment at this time, but I want you to know that I injured myself doing X, Y, and Z. Okay. And a lot of times they'll get you over to HR. They'll transfer you over to me, and we'll talk through it. And what that does is that allows me to make a note and communicate to our workman's comp. Say, hey, we had an employee who, had this small injury. He's not wanting to seek treatment at this time, but just as a heads up, because you may not feel that intensity where you think you need to be seen right away. It may show up in a day or so. Mm-hmm. So you call back and you say, you know what, it's not getting any better. I'm not feeling any better. I need to be seen, and then we start the process. And it's not a scary process. And I think a lot of people maybe don't come forward with accidents because they think it's a huge process and it can be scary and overwhelming, and it doesn't have to be. It's simple paperwork that you fill out, and then basically myself and SAFE, who is our workman's comp provider, do all the work. And what that does is that takes you out of being financially responsible for the injury. Mm-hmm. And so I can't stress enough, if you're injured, please report it.
Let your fleet manager know. That way we can get the process going. I mean, are there common mistakes in that process? I mean, okay, so I injured, slip, whoops, it was an accident, but it was on the job, and all right, so I've called, and now a couple days later, we know this happens in a lot of accidents. You're fine the day of, maybe you're fine the next day, but a couple days later, suddenly that starts to get worse and worse. All right, now it's time for me to fill out all this paperwork. Is there like a common mistake people make with that? Is there something? I mean, because I know, unfortunately, these are all bureaucratic things. So if you don't do the bureaucracy quite right, it can cause problems.
Yeah, I would say just being thorough when you're filling out the paperwork. More detail is always better. That helps the process. That helps SAFE to understand the situation and not have to call you multiple times to get statements. So filling out that paperwork thoroughly is highly important. But once again, also communicating that there was an injury. And I'll stress that again. Communicate that there was an injury. That's the first thing, and that's the thing that I see with the most problem with, is that we're not always good about communicating when there's an injury.
Absolutely. So when we end up with we're in the workers' comp system, if you want to say it that way, how does HR sort of fill into that or fit into that? I guess that's a better way to put that. To provide, ensure that the employee's getting through? I mean, kind of what's your role in that process, once they're sort of in the system, if you will?
Yeah. So once their paperwork is filled out and it's submitted to me, then I submit it to SAFE, and I reach out to SAFE, and we go over everything, and we find out, is this employee is there going to be time loss? And what that means is the employee not going to be able to return to work? And so that's what we try to find out right away. So we try to set up doctor's appointments for these team members, get them in, get them evaluated. If we don't have a release that says released with no restrictions, then we need to find out, okay, is this going to be a couple months? Is this a couple weeks? If it's a couple weeks, the best course of action is generally to let the drivers just rest. That's what we want to do, is let them rest, recover, seek whatever treatment they need. If it's going to be a long, drawn out, recovery for them, we have light duty work that that we offer. And so what we like to do is we like to bring the employee back to corporate or the shop area and put them in a position that aligns with their job restrictions. This helps get them back in the workforce, and it helps. Studies have shown that once they get back into the workforce, they recover a lot quicker. So we have that program, and it's worked really well for the last several employees that we've had.
That's great. I mean, is there, because I know one of the concerns with time loss around workers' comp is, making sure that you can make ends meet, that, your paycheck's at risk because, you're now not able to work. Are there other kinds of insurance products that are available for the drivers? I mean, we thought we had this short-term disability type of stuff that helps cover some of that.
Yeah, so workman's comp. So you'll be getting your full wage when you're on workman's comp when you come back for late duty. So how that works? Say if we have a employee who can only work for 6 hours a day, and that's their restriction. So we would pay them their normal rate for 6 hours, and then workman's comp comes in and pays them the remaining 2 hours. Okay. So you're getting your full paycheck when you come back to work. The other thing we have is that we're partners with is Aflac. And so a lot of drivers have selected multiple different coverages from Aflac. We have a really great rep named Beverly who meets with the drivers. She's always available by phone. And a lot of times there's great benefits that can help you during any kind of injury besides workman's comp.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I mean that's the last thing we want is somebody who's got injured and now they're struggling to...
Yeah, financial strain.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So aside from the insurance and the workers' comp pieces that we were talking about, any other kind of HR related issues that you see that we want to talk about today?
I would say Oregon Sick Paid Leave. There's been a lot of challenges with that. It's a new program. Oregon itself wasn't really dialed in and ready to roll that program out. And so a lot of our drivers have been faced with, delayed payment and challenging communication, just getting through to people. It's been really hard. But I have seen some improvement on turnaround times with cases. But if you were to ask me what's another concern in HR, I would say the Oregon Sick Paid Leave program.
Well, that program in theory should be out there to help get you paid, but if it takes you forever to get your money, what's the point?
Yeah. When they first rolled it out, we were seeing people like 30 to 60 days before payment, and that's disheartening to say the least. When you're out ill or you have a family member who's out ill and you're depending on that. So I'm glad it's turned around some. It's still challenging and it can be really frustrating to try to do that over the road for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Jennifer, anything else HR related that we should be talking about that we haven't talked about yet?
No, I'm always happy to get a phone call or email. I hope you feel that I get back to you as soon as possible. But yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody if they have any additional questions.
I always like to wrap up my interviews with something that's a little bit more personal. And so since we know you're a pig mom, I was hoping you might be able to tell us a little bit about your pigs this year, because I know that was you just got those since 4-H season just started. And are we going to have a couple winners?
Oh, I think we are, Nick. I think we are. They're looking really good. We have a male and a female, and that would be a gilt and a barrow for those of you that are in the 4-H community. But yeah, we're excited this year. They're really friendly. They're healthy, and yeah, we're excited. We got my daughter's named hers Cricket, and my son named his Toby.
Well, here's hoping Cricket and Toby are big winners for you guys at the end of the season.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jennifer. Great to have you. Thank you again, Jennifer, for the interview. It was really great to learn some of the background in insurance and workers' comp, and hopefully that's helpful for our drivers and employees as we go forward. Our next episode will be out on April 25th. Our guest will be Jared Colley, our orientation director. Please send any questions you have for Jared via Facebook or email them to us at cbtalk@combinedtransport.com. We appreciate your participation. It's your engagement that makes this podcast work. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And as always, thanks for being part of Combined Transport.